All right. Thank you, everyone. You have made it to the Web Application Security Building an Offensive Testing Program with Cybersecurity Graduate Student Sessions here at the UC Tech Conference. We will be having a presentation by 3 people from our Berkeley Information Security Office. We have Josh Kwan, who's a Senior Information Security Analyst. We have Allison Henry, who's the Chief Information Security Officer, and we'll be joined shortly by Sharon Andrus, who's the Associate Chief Information Security Officer. We will be addressing questions if you have them. There's the chat window in the See Event window. So we'll be collecting the questions and we'll be handling them at the end of the presentations. So take it away, Allison.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Really happy to be here. Hopefully Sharon will be joining us shortly, but I think just in the interest of time, we're going to jump in and get started. Really very excited about this program and really happy to share it with you. So let's get started. Okay, so we have a little bit of a thought question, and so I want to start with that. So first of all, and you can put some, thoughts on this into the chat. How many of you have a web application security testing program right now at your institution? So for the non-Berkeley folks, do you have a program in place to test web applications and do this offensive security testing? And if you don't, then how many wish that you did, but resourcing is standing in the way? So you can just kind of type those in the chat while we dive in. And in the meantime, I did want to share a little bit about our institution for those of you who aren't familiar with UC Berkeley. So about 32,000 undergraduates and just under 13,000 graduate students. So a very large campus, one of the top ranked universities in the world, and the top, according to US News and World Report anyway, the top public institution in the world. Very proud of our reputation. We do a lot of world-class research, a lot of, really science in the public good is what Berkeley research is all about. So we're really happy to support that. And we do want to make sure our systems and data are safe. So I will hand it over to Sharon.
Hello, everybody, and apologies, it's super loud. This is the quietest place I could find. So the Masters of Information Cybersecurity program is a collaboration between us, ISO, and the School of Information, and it provides graduate students exposure to app security testing, both the technical and business processes. Good question about next slide. And so MIX is an interdisciplinary, fully online program focused on developing students' understanding of information security technologies, as well as economic, legal, behavioral, and ethical impacts of cybersecurity, which are really important. So this is a slide that kind of details some of the demographics from the program. Many of you heard the stats around the number of vacancies in the field, and many of you have also felt the pain of trying to recruit to fill some of those vacancies. And so the MIX program aims to grow the cybersecurity workforce. With the 100% online format, the program is able to target individuals who work full-time, those who might be interested in a career shift, as well as expand talent into underrepresented groups.
All right, so I'm going to take it from here and talk a little bit about the need for web application security. So web applications are a major vector. I know right now we're hearing a lot about, phishing and credentials theft and that being the way into systems, but that is true. It doesn't mean that web applications are not still a vector, because they are. And we saw that from the most recent Verizon data breach investigations report, that 60% of incidents and 40% of confirmed breaches had web application as part of the vector in. The other issue that we have is that, while we know this is a weakness and that it's really important for us to test our web applications, and know that they're safe. We have campus policy requirements that say that web applications and critical systems should be tested. This offensive style testing is part of our policy. It's very resource intensive. And so it's one of these things that we know that we should do. We know there's a good reason why we should do it, but it's really hard to get the resources for it. And part of that is just, it's a very specialized skill to be able to do that. And it's hard to maintain for, even a mid-sized security team to have a whole group focused on that. So we really have a need to fill in a gap in this area with a service. And so over time, we've tried different approaches to meeting this need. We realized that students would be a good resource for this. And so we did have student employees doing application security testing. We have a lot of student employees that work for us in a variety of roles across ISO, from help desk to development to comms and outreach. So this was a natural fit. So we did get a couple of students that worked under a security analyst, and it did show like they were able to find vulnerabilities that we were able to get fixed in our web application. The problem is that it was difficult to scale to the number of students that we'd need and the amount of supervision those students would need to really reach all of our business applications at the level that we wanted to. It's just they require a lot of care and feeding. They're there to learn, so they have to be taught, and their work has to be checked. So, if the staff member is going to take the time for that, then it doesn't leave the resources that we need to get enough applications in the queue. The other thing that we tried was sort of more of a self-service approach, where we wanted to put the tools in the hands of developers so that they could run their own web application checks on their own code and build that into the software development life cycle. So we got licenses for IBM AppScan. We said to the developer list, hey, anybody want this? And it's one of those things where everyone's super excited about it and wants to give it a try. And we hand out the licenses, they log in once or twice, and they never use it again. They're developers, they're not necessarily, security experts. I think the learning curve on the tool was pretty high for them. And when, budgets are tight and priorities shift, it's really hard for them to have the cycles to give the program what it needed. So that was not successful. We ended up stopping our contract with AppScan because we just weren't getting the uptake. So a solution presented itself when a woman who used to work within ISO and our former IT policy person, and then who became the privacy officer at our campus, she eventually moved on to work with the School of Information on this new master's program, so that you get a master's of information security. And Sharon explained a bit about that program. So, but she had a relationship with us and knew that, this could be a really valuable partnership. She reached out to me, and that's Lisa Ho, by the way. And I just want to give a huge shout out to Lisa for all she's done to make this happen. So she, reached out to me about like, what could we do to partner to benefit both you and the information security team and the School of Information. So we talked to her and came up with some ideas and worked out this program that we're sharing with you today. So this is a partnership between the Information Security Office and the School of Information with this mixed program, graduate master's program students. And in this program, we get the benefits of having students doing our web application testing, but instead of ISO staff having to supervise them, they do it as part of their coursework. So they have an instructor who's leading their work, who's doing that, the teaching part of this. Like they're here to learn how to do web application testing. They have an instructor who's teaching them and working, in a program with us, with our business applications being what's tested. So we worked very closely with Lisa and the instructor of the program to come up with, what are the rules, first of all, right? We want to teach them that when you do web application security testing, you have to play by the rules. You have a code of conduct that you have to agree to. You have to have an understanding with the business team you're working with about what you will and will not do. We also worked on the syllabus because, again, there's the teaching part, and then there's the hands-on practicum part. And then ISO also provides the virtual machine environment and the tooling, so that we provide virtual machines in our campus environment that have the tools they need to do it, so students aren't using their own laptops for this. All right, and in order to make that happen too, we reached out to our partners at coursework to get Burp Suite Pro licenses. They do offer free academic licenses, but normally, if our security team was going to get Burp Suite, we would have to pay for the licenses. They were good enough, since this is an educational program and it's used in an academic setting, to give us the licenses. And so that saved us a lot of money and is putting this very powerful tool in the hands of these students as part of their education. We also had to come up with, okay, what are these applications that are going to get tested? We have to get our business owners on board and being okay with this, and those busy developers to take the time for this engagement in order to improve their applications. And so we put up, if you'd like your application to be tested, fill out this form, information about the program on our website. We reached out to our application admins. We also can integrate this into our regular assessments process, because when we look, do that more, not the offensive testing, but just the reviewing security plans and looking, are you meeting policy requirements? We can say, well, one of the policy requirements is application testing. And guess what? We have a program for you. So you can put your name on the list. So that's how we get these applications all queued up and ready to go into the class for testing. So the way it works is there is a class. The class runs every semester. I believe there's 3 semesters in a year. Is that right? Yes. So every class that runs can do 3 to 4 applications. The students work in teams so that you have a team of students that are testing each application. They spend the first 7 weeks of the course learning the techniques. So this is the instruction part where they're learning the tools. And then the application admins present their apps. So then they talk through that. Like, that's a real important part of the testing, is for the security tester to understand the business application and what it does. And then the next half of the class is the hands-on practicum, where they're actually, using the VMs to test these applications, using the Burp Suite tools, using everything they learned in the first half of the class to do the actual testing. Once the testing is complete, they write a vulnerability report, and this is like a professional level report, just like you would provide to a customer if you had a web application testing consulting. It's just very high quality reporting, very professional. And then they provide that to us and to the application admins. And then they kind of throw the ball into our court, because, again, finding the vulnerabilities doesn't do you any good if you don't fix them. So then we use our own, vulnerability management and tracking to follow up and make sure that the vulnerabilities that the student team finds are addressed in our actual production business applications. Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to Josh to talk about, that was just the high level overview, how this really works in practice and what the student teams have found.
Thanks, Allison. Hey, everyone. So let's talk about some of the results of the program so far. We launched our first semester was summer 2022. We've completed 3 semesters. The 4th is currently in progress. During those 3 semesters, students have had the opportunity to test 9 different web apps so far. I'll also mention within those 9 web apps, they've been able to test a wide variety of application stacks. So Ruby on Rails, PHP apps, AngularJS, and if you believe it, even some Cold Fusion. We have some legacy Cold Fusion on campus. So a wide variety of app stacks, which is cool for the students to get exposed to. And amongst those 9 apps, over 102 flaws were discovered for those 3 semesters. So pretty impressive results. We're really excited and pleased with the results. I also want to mention the distribution of that 100 flaws is pretty even amongst each semester. So it wasn't like one semester really knocked it out of the park. I think each semester discovered 20 or more vulnerabilities. In terms of the other distribution, you can see the list of vulnerabilities by risk severity. So 18 high risk, 50 medium risk, 34 low risk. That severity is determined by the students in consultation with the instructor, and then defined in the report as well. And then you can see the sort of examples of types of vulnerabilities discovered. So cross-site request forgery, path traversal, which we'll touch on as an example in a moment, data tampering, file upload, cross-site scripting. So these are all things, if you're familiar with the OWASP top 10 sort of organization that publishes really common web app vulnerabilities for a certain set of years, you'd see these in that list. Next slide, please. So we wanted to show you an example of a technical write-up. So this is one finding, as I mentioned, the path traversal example. This is the sort of professional technical writing the students do in the report. And so they do an explanation of the vulnerability, a technical write-up of what did they discover, what was the vulnerable parameter or page, how did they exploit it, as well as what the impact is. And then again, the risk severity. And then of course, recommendations or remediation guidance. What are the practical steps a developer or app admin can take to approach to fix this or work around this vulnerability in the application? Next slide, please. So I mentioned path traversal as an example. So this is an actual, so each finding has evidence at the bottom of the report where the students demonstrate how they actually exploited the flaws, right? So it's not just a hypothetical, we think this is vulnerable. They actually show the proof of concept, screenshots and other evidence. And so this is an example of path traversal, which if you're not familiar with that, it's a fairly common web vulnerability, also known as the .. attack. So what you're looking at here is a screenshot of Burp Suite Professional, the tool that Allison mentioned that the students use in the class. The left pane shows the malicious request by the students to give me your .. and on and on and on /etc password file, right? So, and then the right side is the server response saying, okay, yes, here's my password file with all my local operating system and user accounts, not something you want attackers to do, right? So this, you can imagine how attackers might leverage this type of thing. They can read files outside the web root. They can also read things like source code potentially, or configuration files. Maybe they get API keys or database passwords this way, right? And so another way to leverage this vulnerability and compromise the system. Next slide, please. And so after each report is issued, the students actually, in their final class, present the report to the app admins, and then the instructor gives us a copy of the report. And what I'll do is take that report and then grab the significant issues, create a ServiceNow ticket where we can track things in a spreadsheet with the app admins and get solid timelines on how they're going to remediate each significant vulnerability. And so in this previous example, the path traversal vulnerability was patched within 5 weeks, which I think is pretty great in terms of from discovery to actual fix. We're pretty happy with that life cycle. Next slide, please. So let's talk about some of the benefits of the program. One of the major ones being how cost effective it's proven to be. So if you were to go to an outside third party to get this type of testing done, you'd be looking at anywhere from $15K to $100K per assessment. There's a link there in the slide deck if you're interested in the study where they get these numbers. And our program in comparison is doing that at kind of at a fraction of the cost, right? So 9 apps per year for a little over $7,000, which again, as Allison mentioned, that's just the total cost of the virtual machines for testing. So really great cost savings. And I think we all agree comparable results in terms of professional reports and results. So, and with that, I'm going to hand it back to Sharon for more benefits of the program.
So we can't leave off the benefits that our students are actually getting through the program. And as mentioned earlier, the students not only hone their cyber skills, but they also get an opportunity to practice their communication skills throughout the course. We also provide them with attribution via formal CISO letter from Allison, which allows them to leverage this work on their resumes and LinkedIn. And we also have a code of conduct that allows third-party vulnerabilities to be disclosed to the vendor so they can get credit for that as well. And this is a testimonial. And we put this in because we really thought that this was like kind of indicative of the experience that the students are having and the value that they're placing on it. And so one of the students said that this was the real hands-on experience. It really helped grow their understanding of web app security, and that it was one of the most immediately applicable and useful courses that they've taken in the program. So that was really great to hear and to get that feedback that the students really are experiencing value through this course.
Yeah, I'll just add on to that too. We're seeing more and more where like professional certifications, it's not that they're not helpful and they're definitely good things to pursue, but what employers need to know is, can you do the work? So if you want to get a job, and again, this program is for people looking to like make a career shift and look for, you know, those skills they need to make that shift. To have that, you know, I have a letter here saying that I know how to do web application testing from a CISO. It just has so much value. And so we're really happy to be able to support the students while getting so much benefit to, you know, for our program too, and to augment our team. So I did want to just another shout out to, I mentioned Lisa. I wanted to give a shout out to Lisa, to the mixed program, and also to the instructor, Jania Hisver, who has been like super key in making this program a success, coming up with the syllabus and the academic support. Also to our courseworker who gave us the licenses. That was, you know, again, we're using them for our business applications, but this isn't an academic program that's there to teach. So that is very helpful in making this cost effective for us. So I do want to, like, you know, we have lots of time for questions, and I know we went through that really fast too. So totally happy to like go back and cover anything and any questions. So, and I see one just popped up here. Did your semester total cost include the price of Burp Suite software, just the VMs? So the licenses for Burp Suite were all free, donated by Portswigger under their, you know, academic licensing. And so, yes, it was just the VMs. That's the only thing that ISO is covering. Now, I do want to point out that the School of Information is providing the instructor, and the instructor's salaries, when we put that number, it's not included in that. The students are paying money to attend. This is a professional school program. The students are paying money to attend, and that money goes to support the costs of delivering their education, including the instructor. So it is like, you know, considering how most of the time you have to pay people a lot of money to do this testing, we're getting that part as part of an academic program. Cool. Any other questions for us? If any of my co-presenters too have any other thoughts they want to share on the program and what it's been like.
I don't know if we mentioned, but we did include some of the materials from the program in the CVent as attachments. So you can get the slide deck if you want to look at some of the details of that. But there's also our code of conduct, which took a lot of authoring and input from our other stakeholders like legal and privacy. We have confidentiality agreement stuff. So boilerplate stuff, if you were interested in replicating something similar that you could borrow from, as well as the class syllabus and sample report. So that's there if you're interested.
And I would just chime in. I just attended a cybersecurity workforce session. And I think this is just another way that we can start to build out that pipeline. A lot of the students that are attending, yes, are working in technology, but some of them are career transitioners. And so again, looking at your institutions, and maybe you have a school of information or something similar, and how you can invest in, again, making sure that we're pouring into the folks that we then want to come into cybersecurity, or so that they have the opportunity to understand that it would be a good career for them. So, just think about that when you're thinking about how you can apply maybe some of this on your campuses.
I did put the intro slide up again, just so you have our email addresses if you wanted to reach out with any questions. And then there's another question here, which I'll send to Josh. How did you select Burp Suite? Were there requirements or selection criteria? And how does Burp Suite Pro compare to some of the other DAST tools in the market?
Sure. So yeah, Burp Suite, we actually just reached out to them as an idea because the instructor wanted to use that tool as the primary tool in the class. And we thought, well, let's reach out to them. And they were happy to give us the licenses. Their only stipulation was that the tool was prominently featured in the course, which was already part of the instructor's plan. And so that was the reason, but it's also sort of considered probably the #1 web attack proxy tool, right? There are other ones. There's Z attack proxy that's open source, but Burp is widely considered by professionals as the best tool. So that was the reason for selecting that. How does it compare to other DAST tools? Really kind of different. So DAST meaning dynamic security testing of your code and things like that in your application. Burp Suite is really an attack proxy. So it's more for red teams or assessors, right, to try and break into a web application. So it can sit in between your web browser, right? And as you send requests, it can manipulate them and perform different attacks in real time. So it's more useful for manual testing. It does do some great automated testing too, but it's more hands-on with an analyst to sort of look and interpret the results and manipulate parameters in real time with the application. So they're a little different, but DAST and SAS tools are great too, just a different tool in the toolkit, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Other questions for us? I know that we've got dinner coming up for the in-person attendees here. So maybe give it another just minute or two. I will say, while we wait for any additional questions, a couple of things we're looking like for the future on this is there a possibility of doing any other type of red team testing with a similar program? So this is very focused on web applications, but maybe some network penetration testing could be another option. And, how can we expand this model? I'd really love to see other, UCs do this too, because I know that this is a gap that other campuses have as well, and it's hard to staff for. So please do look at the materials if you have any interest in starting it up. We're happy to help. Well, it looks like that's it. Thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate it. And enjoy the rest of UC Tech.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.